So what we understood by a couple of terminology last time, we have seen that, and we have also seen that what is availability zone and availability set. We haven't went to inside availability zone and availability set, but we have just seen an overview. And also we try to understand that what is a resource and what is a resource group. Uh, Resource group, is it clear to everyone? What is a resource group?
Yes.
Okay. So simply resource group is a virtual container, right? This is what you can say that is a virtual container that allow you to aggregate similar sets of the resources. So let's say that you have a production resources, so you want to keep it in the same box, so you will create a production resource group. You might have the HR you want to say aggregate with uh, uh, you want to aggregate with in terms of department, so you will keep it HR or IT as a resource group, right? So it is just a virtual boundaries which ties all the resources, similar kind of resources together. All right. Important thing is that any resource, whether compute or storage or any resource in Azure, should be part of at least one resource group. Any resource in Azure cannot be deployed without having the resource group. Right? You have to create a resource group for deploying any resource in Azure, and it should be part with only one resource group. Without cannot be deployed without resource group, and it should be part of only one resource group. So you can simply similarly see here we have a multiple resources: compute, networking. This is a table. This is a SQL database, automation account. All are the part of some resource group, right? All are the part of the some resource group, and every resource, any resource group is a part of only one resource group. It cannot be possible I can make it make this a resource in the two part of the two resource group. It cannot be possible. You have to keep it for anyone, one resource group only, right? Same way, resource group will be part of any one subscriptions. It cannot be part of a two subscriptions, right? I have a multiple subscriptions, so I cannot make a owner of resource group of two subscription. It's a single one-to-one connect in the Azure. Make sense? All right. All right. So, did I completed this the presentation yesterday? Anyone can help me out? Did I cover this all
Uh,
topics?
I'm not able to see the screen if you're sharing any screen.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Hey, guys, prompt me, yaar. Now, can you see screen?
Yes, now we can see this is not covered.
This is not covered.
Yes.
All right. All right. Okay, guys. First thing first. Are you awake? I know it's early morning, 8 o'clock. Have you
Yes.
got
Yeah.
have you got your coffee? Have you got your coffee and tea? Right? Should I continue or should I take a few minutes break to bring your coffee or tea?
Continue.
All right. All right.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect, guys. So see, in the last session also I requested you that please ask me the questions. Right? Please ask me the question, prompt me anything if you have a doubt, because it's instructor-based training. It's not just a recorded session, right? So please ask me any doubt or any question you have. Right. So I was explaining. that each and every resource will be part of the one resource group. It cannot be belongs to two resource groups, right? Same way, a resource group will be part of one subscription. It cannot be part of the two subscription. And there's a management group we'll see later on, not now, but any management group will be part of one, any subscription will be part of the one management group. It is not important you to have always management group. It's optional, right? We'll see later on this one. All right. For accessing Azure resources, we have plenty of hierarchies, right? So this is your resource, what you deploy, whether it's virtual machine or storage, or might be SQL database, right? That will be part of the one resource group, which we already discussed. That resource group will be part of the subscription. In general, in your practice, when you do the practice, right, you have access till the subscription. If you're creating a new subscription for your practice, you will having access till the subscription because your individual identity. You are doing a practice, you are not belongs to any company. So your portal will have access, portal.azure.com, you will have access till the subscription. But let's assume your organization have hundreds of subscription. Who will going to own this 100 subscription? Right now, this single subscription is owned by you, right? Just give me example. The my subscription, this is my subscription, which I right now I accessing, is owned by me. I'm not an organization. I'm not a part of any organization. So in general, this two subscription is belongs to me as an individual. I'm as an individual person. I'm handling this subscription. On one of a subscription, I have borrowed from my friend and taken as a owner as a owner role. This is my own subscription, right? And I am having account admin roles over here, right? So if I want to add access, if I want to provide a billing, if I want to pay for it, I'll be using this portal.azure.com to access it. But let's assume your organization have 100 subscription. Who is going to manage those 100 subscription? Who will be owner of that subscription? Who will going to pay bill for this subscription, right? So that will be a challenge. To overcome that challenge, Microsoft have introduced a EA portal. EA is Enterprise Agreement Portal, right? Azure Enterprise Portal. Whereas in the Enterprise Portal, you can generate new subscription, you can delete the old subscription. If you don't want any subscription, you can delete, right? You can give authority to someone who can handle, who can orchestrate, who can manage the subscription. So that will be done on the EA subscription. It's enterprise level, right? Since enterprise will have a multiple departments, let's say that we're talking about Tata is one of an entity as enterprise agreement. And it's in enterprise agreement, right? Tata might have a TCS, Tata Consultancy. Tata might have a TPS, Tata Finance. It have a Tata Constructions. It have a Tata Motors. It have a multiple departments, right? So in the department itself, they have a multiple accounts. They record multiple accounts. TCS is record for Mumbai. TCS record a subscription for the Mumbai, or they have a sub branch for the Mumbai. They have a Pune branch. They have a Bangalore branch. So they wanted to have a further segregations. So that can be done on account level, right? And account level also can create a subscription. If you are become account owner, right? You can also create a subscription. You can pay bill for your on your behalf of your subscription, or rather than paying on enterprise level, you can pay here itself. Any questions here, guys? Any questions?
Can you
No?
explain once again the resource and resource?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Uh, can you explain once again for resource and resource groups?
Okay, so resource could be anything. If let's say that I want to deploy a virtual machine, right? I have decided to deploy a virtual machine, and this virtual machine, when we are deploying this virtual machine in Azure, it will have a few components: CPU, RAM. In Azure, we call SKU, right? Then it will have a disk. Then it will have a network card. It will have public IP. It will have NSG, right? And since this will be a minimum resource this will be essential resource we require when we deploy a virtual machine in Azure. This is one resource. This is another resource. This is a resource. This is a resource. This is a resource. Every service in Azure is called resource. Is it clear, Shankar?
Yeah, clear.
Right? All right. Let's assume if you have in organization 2000 virtual machine, you have a requirement, right? Your virtual organization have a 2000 virtual machine. So assume that single virtual machine will have this much resources as a service, and you will have a 2000 virtual machine. You will require at least 8000 resources, right? And it will be really difficult to manage. And if you just click on the your all resources, it will just show the all resources all in one page, right? It will be really difficult to manage that which machine is belongs to which groups, and which is a production, which is a UAT, or might be you can simply say that which is a POC which I have already done and I need to delete it, right? It will be really tough to understand from a single page which have listing all the resources. To make ease of your managing resources, what Microsoft have done, Microsoft have created a feature called resource group, right? And resource group will have some unique name in the subscription. So let's say that I'll give it a name for my resource group RG. Uh, RG. The project is, let's say that, website POC. This is my POC, and I am deploying for India, Central India, and this is my 001 number one. So this is I am giving a name to my resource group, and I'll try to make it all POC item which is related to this website, the website which I'm going to do. I want to do the POC, right? So for any resource, any item which will be comes in this project, I'll going to deploy here. Whether it's a disk, whether it's virtual machine, whether it is a CPU, whether it is networking, whether it is a security, whether it's a firewall, anything which will comes for this POC, I'll be deploy here, right? Once work done, I can find out I can find out a pricing, how much this is cost, right? I can simply click on resource group. There's a cost analysis option is there. I can find out how much I have paid for this POC, right? I wanted to put a capping, budgeting. I want to put a budget for this project. So I want to make sure that if this project cross the budget, I should get email. I can put it a budgeting. I will make sure that this POC will be managed by only Pooja, not everyone. Nobody else will can access it. I can control access, right? So Pooja can do whatever he wants to go inside inside this resource group, but no other people can do that, right? Right. One more thing which we can do that if the POC is done and we don't require these resources, I'll just delete this resource group. I'll just delete this resource group. So entire resources inside this resource group will be get deleted along with that resource group, right? So it's a similar like a folder, which we generally understand that, okay, this is a folder, right? If I want to make sure that I am taking Azure classes, right? Azure classes, so I'll be keeping all the data here for the Microsoft Azure classes. If I delete this folder, I'll be going to delete all the resources which is inside this folder, right? So it will help me to understand that, okay, this is a space, physical space I am using for this folder, right? And this kind of a data, this could be various types of files. This is all related to my production. This is all related to my website one. So this is a kind of a folder. This is a virtual boundary. If you just create an empty resource group, just like an empty folder, it doesn't have any value. It is zero property. Same way the billing for the resource group will be zero because resource group doesn't cost you anything. Make sense? Only thing differentiate between folders and resource group, you cannot have nested resource group. You cannot have nested resource group. It will be get nested in the subscription. Is it clear, Amanat?
Yeah, clear.
All right,
Yeah, clear.
perfect. Thank you. All right. For deploying your resources, let's say that you are already have plan, you need to deploy the resources. You wanted to create a resource group. Where you're going to create a resource group, you have to require some billing point where you should get billed. That will be a subscription. And how to access the subscription? You're using portal.azure.com if you are an individual identity. And even if you are going to organization, you're using this portal itself. But if you're individual, you attach your credit card in the subscription, right? But if you are working in an organization, nobody attach his own credit card to subscription. They want to make sure that this billing should be happen from the company, right? So in the company, who will be owner? Who will going to attach? Who will responsible for take care of a billing? Who will going to scrutinize that? What resources we are spending? How much amount we are spending? That will be account owner, right? It is possible that will be happen that they will have account.azure.com URL where they can do the billing, where they can manage the all higher level access, right? There could be possible that we have a multiple departments in the organization, and everyone wants to keep their own billing, right? They want to, or you want to manage by own corporate credit cards, or they want to follow different offers, right? So you can segregate at enterprise level agreement, right? And you can have a multiple departments, and you can create a subscription, EA subscription, not a general subscription, pay-as-you-go subscription. We'll come to the subscription, how many types of subscription we have. So we can create an enterprise agreement subscription and assign to department or any accounts, right? That can be done on ea.azure.portal.com. Usually either CTO or cloud owner or account department, account owner, sorry, finance department will have access to this enterprise portal. Apart from that, nobody have, not even a senior architect. Very less company will provide access to senior architect, but usually the CTO of a company or who is driving entire cloud project in your organization and the finance team, they will have access to your enterprise agreement. Otherwise, you will not able to see the access to enterprise agreement. All right. You generally use your portal.azure.com to access your subscription. All right, let's move further. This is a similar example which we already have discussed. Uh, Resource can be exist in one resource group, right? A resource group cannot be renamed. In Azure, any resource cannot be renamed, guys. Just remember that. Once you deploy, any resource cannot be renamed. All right. Okay. Yeah. Resource group can be in the resource group. You can have a different types of resources. Doesn't matter. You should have a similar kind of resources. Not all virtual machine. It could be virtual machine. It could be disk. It could be firewall. It could be SQL database. Different types of resource can be deployed. Oh yeah, right. Resource group can be from the different regions. We'll see that this example. So which means that resource group will be in Central India. But I want to deploy resource virtual machine in South India. I can deploy and keep it in the resource group. It should not necessary that we should have a same region as a resource group which we are deploying resources. So let's say that a web app we are deploying, this is going to deploy in South India, this is I'm going to deploy Europe, this is I'm going to deploy in East US2, right? And this is the resource group is a part of the East US2. It could be possible, it's a similar, but it is a different regions. It could be possible. Make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
yeah, understood that first.
All right. It's again, I'll not go into details. We'll see that when we have a governance topic, we'll discuss on what is a management group and why we require management group, right? When we are discussing Azure policies and IAM access, that time we're going to discuss about a management group. But I just wanted to give a heads up that management group is a root management is a top layer where you can create a multiple sub-management groups, right? It can be hierarchies, right? It is easy to manage multiple subscription. If you have a multiple subscription in organization and you want to manage it properly, with departments and with your use case. Let's say that you wanted to keep it India and Europe different subscriptions, so you want to keep it segregated and apply the policies you will using the management group over there. There's a lot of things we can do with management group. We'll talk later on. All right. The connection between your account to subscription and the resource is one to one. You can have one enterprise agreement that can have multiple departments. Each department will can have a multiple accounts. Each account can have a multiple subscription, and each subscription can have multiple resource group, and each resource group can have multiple resources. It's a one-to-many one-to-many relationship in the deployment, right? So let's move on to our today's topic. Just closing this, which is a pending from last time. Let's move on to our today's topic is Azure Compute. Any questions, guys? Meanwhile, I'm opening the presentation. No questions? All right.
No questions.
Okay. Before moving ahead, does anyone understand, or does anyone don't understand what is virtual machine? Not only Azure virtual machine, it's in general. What's the difference between physical machine and virtual machine? Is anyone who don't understand?
Basically, we have the hardware components. In that hardware component, we create virtually another CPU. Like, for example, VMware, we take the example of VMware.
Okay, perfect.
Mm,
For example, VMware. And
it's
everyone understand what is virtual machine, right? Anyone who don't understand? I believe no. All right. In Azure, similar a virtual machine concept is a similar. We have a virtual machine in if you are using VMware or Hyper-V. right? So we understand that, okay, virtual machine will have a virtual CPU, virtual RAM, virtual disk, right? Same way in Azure, you will have a virtual disk, which is a disk as a service in Azure. You will have virtual network, which is a network card in Azure. You will have a virtual machine, which will containing the virtual CPU. All right. In Azure, if you are planning to deploy a virtual machine, couple of resources you can deploy, couple of resources cannot be deployed. What things you can deploy? In Azure, you can deploy Windows operating system, any Windows operating system, whether it is our server edition or desktop edition, whether it is 2018 supported edition or 2022, which is upcoming especially for the Azure in the server side. You can deploy Windows 10, you can deploy Windows 11 on Azure as a virtual machine. Right? Azure also support the Linux operating system, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Debian, SUSE. This is the four operating system Microsoft Azure supports. Apart from that, if you have any custom operating system, custom operating Linux, let's say that you want to have a Kali Linux or you want to have Shockwave Linux. So those things you can bring your own. That can be supportive. It's any Linux you can support on Azure. All right. Uh, All right, this sentence that customer are responsible for configuring, patching, maintaining the operating system and software on the top of that runs. What exactly it's mean? Why I'm saying that? Why I'm saying this one? Why customer is
Uh,
responsible?
because virtual machine is like IaaS part, so we have to
Exactly,
manage that.
exactly. So there is a share responsibility chart. If you go to Azure Microsoft Azure document page, where is my browser? All right. So there is a share responsibility module. We have to understand what are our responsibility, what will be Microsoft responsibility, right? So if we're deploying virtual machine will comes under the IaaS solutions, infrastructure as a solution. So Microsoft will be taking care only infrastructure part, physical host, physical networking, physical data center. Microsoft is responsible till the physical form, right? On the top of that, we will getting a virtual machine that will containing operating system, networking tool, any applications. All will we will be responsible. We have to manage it. We have to do we have to do configuration setting. We have to do patching. We have to do maintaining every quarter months, every 6 months. We have to or every month we have to do security updates, right? This will be our responsibility, not a Microsoft responsibility. So let's say that if your virtual machine get compromised, any virus get infected your virtual machine, or some attacker have inside attack your virtual machine, you cannot blame on Microsoft, right? I know we are hosting on Microsoft. Microsoft is will help you out to protect it, but it's your responsibility. You have to make it secure. All right, all right. Any questions here, guys? No. All right. What else in the we can deploy in Azure? We can deploy anything which is comes under this two operating system, whether if it is Windows and Linux. And how we can get this operating system? We can use image provided by Microsoft Azure. There's a Azure Microsoft Gallery where Microsoft have published all operating system images, right? Or if you feel that, okay, don't want to go for Microsoft images, it's a complete vanilla, it doesn't have anything inside it. I have my own image. You can bring your own, you can bring your own custom image. Okay, one question, guys. All of you understand that what is image? What is image? Guys, please unmute and acknowledge or answer it. I know.
Maybe the ISO file.
Okay. Anyone else defer that? Or anyone's or everyone knows that what is ISO file? Is it everyone knows that what is ISO file?
Yes, ISO file
Yes.
we know. Yes.
All right, it's ISO
Yes.
file. Yeah, you can simply say that it's ISO file, but it's not in ISO format. It's in image format. Image is, let me give an example. When you have a physical machine, all right? If you have a physical machine, if you bought it from the hardware or if you bought it from the shop, you have a simple hardware. In the hardware, what you have a CPU, RAM, you have a disk, right? And if you boot it, it says that, hey, I'm start looking for the operating system. I don't find it. I'm booting fail, right? What generally you do that you bought another CD from the market, operating system CD, Windows CD, right? This is Windows CD, and you plug this Windows CD to operating system, and that will help you to boot your your laptop. You plug it to your laptop and it will help you to boot your operating system and install the operating system in your laptop. And once work done, you remove your CD. Right now, next onwards, you will have operating system layer in your physical machine. This will be OS. What will happen in virtualization technology? Right? Let's assume you have a virtual machine. That virtual machine runs on a physical machine. You have a multiple virtual machine, right? So this you either you can plug this Windows CD and attach this disk to your virtual machine, or in virtual machine world we download this CD in soft format. That is called ISO file or IMG file, right? This CD is become as a file, ISO file or IMG file. You download on your disk and attach to your virtual machine. Attached to your virtual machine. And that ISO file will help to boot and install your virtual machine and get the operating system. We have a ISO library we get stored on our disk, right? It contains various types of operating system, Windows, Linux, and any other version for your various operating system which you are running in a single box. All right. In Azure, we cannot upload, if you are using Azure Cloud or AWS Cloud, we cannot upload any ISO or physical disk here. We cannot upload it. What they do instead of that, they have called image concept. Image concept in Azure, right? It is published by Microsoft Azure. You don't need to do upload and download anything. Microsoft says that, hey, don't worry about your operating system or installing choosing operating system. Let me make it available for always. Whether you install virtual machine or not, it will be always available for you, right? So when you're deploying virtual machine in Azure, you choose what operating system image you require and you deploy virtual machine with help of that. All right. But when you are deploying this from this machine, it's contain complete vanilla. Vanilla means that this is complete pure. There's nothing there inside. It is no software installed, nothing there. It's just like a fresh, right? It's complete vanilla flavor. So your organization receive a request or you receive a request that I need a virtual machine that should contains antivirus, that should be hardened, right? That should be have a Cisco Cisco Connect software, right? That should have CI/CD software. That should have a couple of more firewall client. That should have a monitoring client, right? This entire after deployment, and you have to configure your machine. You have to deploy antivirus client. You have to register your antivirus client. You have to do all the stuff. That takes 30 minutes for you. All right, after deployment. And company said, hey, we required approximately 200 virtual machine. Do you think that you require to do all this stuff, 30 minutes efforts every 200 virtual machine? No, that is not a right practice. If you're going to put your unnecessary putting effort to doing the same thing, next, registering virtual machine, let me go out. Next, then I'm registering machine and doing installation, then I'm coming to the next virtual machine. That is unnecessary 200 times you're putting 30 minutes efforts. What instead of what you can do that, you can create one machine, install all the items and convert this machine into image, right? This is become your image. Now all the virtual machine, next 199 virtual machine, the remaining virtual machine, even 200, all the 200 virtual machines, you will going to deploy from rather than Microsoft image, you are going to deploy from this image, right? All this image. You are going to deploy a new virtual machine from this image, this image. So that is going to save your 200 minutes, right? No, not 200 minutes, 230 minutes, right? Plus, it will make that every installation is similar and standardized. There is no differentiation that it could be possible if you are doing it manually, you forget CI/CD. In some machine, you forget monitoring tool. But if you do from the image, custom image, you are making consistent. Make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So this image will be called as a custom image. This is a Microsoft provided Azure image, which you generally use from Azure. And this is which you have done your customization and make it a standard. This is called custom image. All right. Now, it could possible that you don't want to use Microsoft image to create your custom image because if you bring it from the Microsoft image, it contains license, right? It contains license. It will going to charge you all virtual machine with the same licensing. You want to make sure that my license should be my own. I should bring my own license from my on premises, right? So simply you can upload. Okay, that will come later on. I'll not cover right now. There's a different way to get it. If you want to remove your license, you can upload from on-premises, apply your own license, and make it custom image. We'll see in when we are talking about image and how to make a custom image, right? We'll see that one. For now, you can use Microsoft image to deploy a virtual machine, or you can bring your own custom image to deploy a virtual machine. All right. What workloads which Microsoft provide, not Linux, not any other operating system, specifically to Microsoft Windows operating system that provides some services that can be deployed, that cannot be deployed. In Azure, you can deploy BizTalk servers, we can deploy Exchange server, you can deploy front-end identity server, you can deploy project server, you can deploy SharePoint server, you can deploy System Center, but you cannot deploy Hyper-V, right? Why we cannot deploy Hyper-V? Because it will become nested virtualization. You already is virtual machine. You are already in the virtual machine, and when you have a Hyper-V inside it, you will be acting as a nested virtual machine, right? And the arranging IPs, managing communication. If you use a bridge mode in the Hyper-V, it will be really difficult to manage from the Microsoft, right? Secondly, it is a business loss for the Microsoft if you are running nested virtualization, right? So Microsoft doesn't allow you to deploy Hyper-V inside your virtual machine, but what happened that a lot of users have complained, what a lot of users have requested, we want to do some POC testing. In some scenarios, we required Hyper-V inside your virtual machine. So Microsoft have enabled D series and E series for nested virtualization. But still, there is no support available. If anything happens on your virtual machine due to Hyper-V, Microsoft will not give you support on that. All right. What else you cannot deploy? You cannot deploy Windows deployment server because there is another tools available from Microsoft Azure which help you deploy your virtual machine. So you don't require deployment server. You don't require remote access server, right management server because the rights can be managed through the Azure portal which we use identity services, right? You you cannot deploy DHCP server because Microsoft is giving the IPs from his virtual network. If you give it from the DHCP service, it will be have a conflict. So those things you cannot deploy on Azure, right? Some of the services you have to test it out whether it will work or not work. I have tested out a couple of services. A few days, till the few days, this RSS service was working. Nowadays, it is stopped working. I have tried at multipath IO. This will also stop working. Earlier it used to work. So you have to check it out whether it's going to work or not. It's Microsoft haven't said anything on this services. This is all Microsoft services. All right. This is we already have talked about marketplace. And in a marketplace, you will find out uh, plenty of operating system which you can deploy, right? Which is not belong to Microsoft and having pre-installed operating system and applications. Any questions, guys, here so far?
No.
Can't we deploy Mac OS in Azure VM?
Mm, I don't think so. We can deploy. I haven't tried out, or I haven't heard this also that someone have tried. If I Mac OS use the Unix BSD kernel, and I don't think so. BSD kernel is supported on Azure. It is a Unix-based kernel. Let me check it out. I haven't checked it out, and I haven't looked for that also. But as per my logic, because it's a BSD kernel, BSD kernel is that Unix kernel, so we cannot deploy. But let me check it out. Someone have tried workaround or not. Officially, no. All right. The ways we can deploy, we can use Azure portal to deploy a virtual machine or any resources. We can use a template, ARM template, which we have talked yesterday. We can use a PowerShell. We have to download Azure PowerShell module on your laptop. This is a PowerShell which generally we use, right, in your laptop. Every laptop have a PowerShell in the Windows, right? You can use and install the module, PowerShell module to deploy your resources, right? You can use Visual Studio. You can use Azure CLI, normal command prompt, which you have CMD prompt. You have to install a tool called CLI tool for supporting your command prompt on your laptop, right? Or you can use Cloud Shell. We have seen the Cloud Shell, right? We have two types of Cloud Shell. We have a Bash Shell. We have a PowerShell. We can use to deploy resources. Or finally, we can use DevOps, right? So there is a various deployment method we can use to deploy resources. And did I went through the ARM template diagram? SDK
Not
ARM
yet.
template.
No,
Okay,
no.
all right. So let me show you that one, how the deployment works in Azure. All right, this is the document I was looking for. If you give any instruction to Azure, let's say that you want to have a virtual machine, or let's say that you want to have a web app. The, the main interaction layer is for deploying anything across multiple region is Azure Resource Manager layer, right? If you you can send instruction from the Azure portal, right? Or you can send through the REST API clients like DevOps, Bamboo, Jenkins, right? You can use a REST API client to deploy in sending instructions, right? Apart from that, you can use your PowerShell that interact with SDK, Software Development Kit, for deploying your resources, right? So all the instructions goes to resource manager, and each resource manager will have a resource provider. This is before having a resource, there will be a resource provider. What is resource provider do? Where is that resource provider do? Resource provider will be make enable your service to get it deploy. So where you can find out resource provider? You can find out your resource provider in the subscription. If you go to any subscription, click on subscription, your subscription, whether you can deploy virtual desktop here in this subscription or not, you can locate first a resource provider, right? If you are registered for the resource provider, that resource you can get deployed in Azure. So let's say that I have already registered with Microsoft Network, Microsoft Storage, Microsoft Security, Compute, DevLab Test. Those are the resources I already registered. A couple of registered services which I have not registered, which is let's say that uh, I have not registered Microsoft add-ons. I am not registered for Microsoft Auto Manage. I am not registered for Microsoft CIS, right? Or Azure Data, Microsoft Azure Data. I am not registered for it. Any service related to this, if I want to use it, I have registered myself in subscription base. Then only I can deploy that related subscription in that related resource in the subscription. All right. How do I find out which resource is belongs to what which service? So let's go to any virtual machine, click on it, go to property, right? If you just look for where is that? Yeah. Let's just look for resource ID, you will find out the resource provider. This is Microsoft Compute. The provider is Microsoft Compute. Right? Let's say that disk, we are going for the disk, hard disk for this virtual machine. Who is the provider for the disk? Go to property. The provider is again compute. In the compute, it's a category called a disk. And in the disk category, you have your disk. Same way, if I go for the virtual machine again, you can look for the category here. It's a Microsoft Compute and category is a virtual machine. And in the virtual machine category, you have your virtual machine. Let me go on networking, NIC card. If I go on property, this provider is Microsoft.network. It is not Microsoft Compute. This service This network card service is provided by Microsoft Network. And the category in the Microsoft.network service is network interface, right? If I don't register myself as a network provider on subscription, I won't able to deploy the network card, right? So let me go on further. Let's say that I'll go for virtual network. This is a virtual network. I'll go in property. I can see that this provider is for Microsoft Network and this category is virtual network. All right. So what exactly is happening here? There is a plenty of Microsoft data centers. This is Central India, Central US, China, might be Europe, right? There's a plenty of data center. So how does virtual machines or resources get deployed on Azure? There is a layer in between, right? There's a layer in between. This is called ARM layer, Azure Resource Manager layer, right? If and this manages your subscription also. So if you want to deploy a virtual machine, there's a couple of options. You can use Azure Portal, or you can use DevOps Portal, which is use the REST API. DevOps could be any DevOps, whether it's Azure DevOps, Bamboo, Jenkins, or you can use Ansible, doesn't matter, right? Or so this will be using a REST API for deploying your product. So it will be sending request to your resource manager, right? If you are deploying from the code or ARM template or PowerShell, right? So there will be a intermediator which is understand your code is SDK, Service Development Kit, and you are sending your code through the SDK, right? You're sending code to your SDK, and SDK will help you to deploy here. All right. Once you send your request to ARM will check that whether you have service registered for networking, storage, or compute, right? So this will be a compute service. This will be a networking service. This will be your storage. This will be might be identity, right? So in the compute itself, the script will have this service provider will have VM service. This will be have a disk service, right? This will be having network card service. This will be virtual network service. This could be handling firewall, right? This could be handling UDR. This handling your storage account. This handling your, let's say that this handling your tables, right? It's handling your database, right? So this instruction has been passed to ARM from ARM to your compute resource provider based on your request, which is you have written in the command line REST API or ARM template, right? It will go based on your instruction which you have written. Where you can see that instruction, guys. So let me show you that one. If anything, this is virtual machines already deploy. I'll go for the code. Come on. So this is all instructions, right? And you can find out what are things you are deploying. So you can see that here I'm deploying Microsoft disk. Here I'm deploying Microsoft network interface. Right. So those things I'm deploying here. This is our already deployed template, so you won't find complete instructions because we have to see the one virtual machine compute instructions also. All right. So the thing is that this will be sent to your resource provider, and resource provider will look for your details based on the region you have decided, based on your service category you have decided. It will deploy virtual machine as service, disk as a service, and based on which region you have deployed, what size you have requested, it will going to deploy virtual machine, a disk sizing over there. Make sense, guys? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect.
Yes.
All right, let's go for virtual machine deployment. Now we are just scratching on a surface that how its Azure works. Let's actually deploy the virtual machine. And when we are planning to deploy a virtual machine, what are the factors we need to consider, right? We'll talk about the planning, deploying, the planning before deploying virtual machine. How to create a virtual machine, what is availability set, and extension. This is four topics we are trying to cover in entire this virtual machine module. First thing comes in the planning. First thing is that planning in the planning phase, you have to inform your customer. This will be IS module. Then you have to inform or gather the details of your planning checklist. Then you have to decide the location and pricing. You have to decide the virtual machine sizing and disk. And there is a plenty of storage option available. We'll talk later. And then operating system, you will decide it and deploy the virtual machine. The first things comes is that you have to educate your customer. This is your responsibility to inform your customer. If he is requesting any virtual machine, you have to inform that, hey, this will be infrastructure service. If you just wanted to have a website, you can go for the PaaS services. But if still you request for the virtual machine, let me clarify that Microsoft is only responsible for the data center, networking, and the physical server and physical storage. They are not responsible for the operating system. You have to pay for the licensing cost, right? You have to pay for the software which you're going to install on the top of that virtual machine, right? You have to do security and maintenance of your virtual machines. All the things you will be responsible. Microsoft is only responsible as perspective, right? You have to share responsibility chart with Microsoft, with your customer if your customer is new to Azure. All right. After they decided, okay, still we want to go for the IS solution rather than PaaS solution, you have to go through with a planning checklist. In the planning checklist, first thing is first is selecting network. What do you think, guys? Why selecting network is important? Why selecting network is important? Anyone? Are you getting, guys, what I'm trying to say?
What is network, like selecting network means?
Yes. Start with the network. The first point is start with network. Why network is important?
Okay, got it. So we are making a virtual machine in the cloud. So the it will be a private network for us. Like that network, that VNet will be private for us. So that is important.
Okay. So should I consider random network? Will it okay for me? Why network selecting network is important? Why choosing a right network is important?
Granting access.
Okay. Anyone else? Guys, other guys, do you want a break for 5 minutes? Please answer it. Or otherwise, I'll start calling a name. Arif,
No.
Amarnath. No, no. I meant to. Voice network is important, guys. Aisha, Pooja. Are you there, guys? Aisha, Pooja.
Yes.
Yes, Ranu.
All right. Rajesh. Guys, please be interactive. See, it is not about just delivering lecture. I really, I can finish this entire lecture within as soon as possible. If you are not interested in interacting, if you are not interested to understand that how
We have,
production works, right? So what I'm trying to give you the insight, any
okay.
organization, how it works, right? It is
So,
not,
Samir, the network is important. Is without network we can't communicate. No, is uh, part of the cloud network.
all right. It is not only in the cloud, it's in on-premises
Mm.
also, right? So
Yeah, other
yeah, let me give a complete scenario why network, which I'm insisting that is important. What happened that, let's say that you're working for some big organization, right? And you organization will have a multiple offices. This office in a Mumbai, right? This is your office in a Mumbai, and your network admin have decided go for 10.0.0/24 network. All right, and you have deployed plenty of physical machine, virtual machine, doesn't matter. You have deployed machines here. Right, 10.0.0.1. Let's not consider one. We'll consider 10.0.0.11, 10.0.0.12, right? So on. So we have office, we have connecting each other. This machine needs to go to communicate. Well, it will easily communicate within a network. This is a private network, right? Let's say that I have another office in the Pune. The branch office is a Pune. Now my network admin here the administrator have deployed couple of virtual machine, physical machines, and it have given a same IP range. Will it work for me? Yes, it will work for me if it's individual identity. So it will having a same IP address, possibly. It will possibly have a same IP address. Right? It will possibly have same IP. But in case I want to make it interconnect two sides, will it be possible now?
No, it will be not be
No.
possible.
Not possible. Why it won't be possible? Because it's conflicting with a different same IP addresses, right? So, and
yeah.
usually all organizations are interconnected, whether it is sitting in India and sitting in US. All are always interconnected with each other. Nobody keeps their individual identity for the branches and for the various office locations. They all are interconnected to each other. So, right, so I cannot go for this IP range. I have to decide, or network admin have to decide a different IP range. Let's think for the go for slash one. Now IP range will be 1.10, right? So on. So this will be have a different IP range. Now they can interconnect each other, right? They can have VPN connectivity, they can have a least connectivity. Now all machines can, without making conflict, they can communicate each other. Same way, the same concept with the cloud. You are not keeping a cloud as an individual identity. You always connect your cloud network, whether it's a single virtual network or multiple virtual network. You definitely going to connect with your on premises, or you definitely going to connect if you're completely on cloud. So you are definitely connecting with other virtual networks, right? It is you can have a multiple virtual network in Azure, right? So you should have a proper IP range. The IP range is given by your network administrator or network architect. So let's say that you are trying to deploy 0.0 before connecting. Let me go here and I had don't connected, right? I just deployed a cloud services in Azure. I have deployed a couple of plenty of virtual machine, and go with standard Microsoft IP range. Microsoft start with 10.0.0 slash 20. Actually, Microsoft start with slash 16 directly. Microsoft have given you this IP range. Now you have deployed all your production items. Everything is deployed here, and every machine's got IPs here. Now your company CTO says, "Hey, why you keep it cloud as an individual entity? Make it connect to my on-premises, so I can also connect on-premises directly from my public IP, private IP." It won't be possible, guys. Why it won't be possible? Because this IP is conflicting with on-premises IP range.
Correct.
Sorry, any question? Is it any question,
Why,
guys?
why there will be a IP conflict?
All right. So this IP range is
No,
start
no.
from sorry, this IP range is starting from 10.0.0 slash 24. And what exactly 24 means that 10.0.0.0 start from 0 and end with 255, right? Which is means of slash 24. Guys, please mute if you're not talking for related to topic, right? And this IP range will be 10.0.1.0. This is range for 10 slash 24. And if you say the slash 16, this IP range will start from 10.0.0, ends on due to slash 16. So this could be possible. They're starting from here 0.0. They can adopting the IP 10.10, 10.11, 10.12. They can also adopting IP 1.0 because it's 255 till the 255. It's adopting entire series of IPs.
Yes,
Mix,
got it.
right? So it definitely going to conflict what Microsoft by default provides. If you just create a virtual network on Azure Microsoft, it will definitely default is this value. If you don't change it, you just deploy it, it will make a conflict with on-premises in future. So you have to go to your network administrator and ask for the what range I should go for on cloud. So so your network administrator will give you some range. Hey, he will give you that, hey, go for 10.0.100 slash slash 0 slash 24. This is for your virtual network. Then either you can take entire IP range or you can make it a further segregation. So let's go for entire range, right? I have taken up this IP range. So my virtual machine will be having IP called 10.0.100.10. Let's assume I'm not putting starting from 1 or 0 because there's a reason I'll talk later on. 11. This will be 100.12. Now in future, if I want to do connect it, I can simply do the VPN connectivity and connect whether it's Mumbai, whether it's Pune. I can connect it. And now those machines, these guys can communicate on over the private IPs. Doesn't require public IPs. Make sense? Let's say
So
that
we will get the IP address from the network team. We will not give the IP from our side as a administrator role.
as a common practice, yes, you should go for network administrator or network architect to get the IP range. You should get interact with the network administrator. You can decide it if you know that, but this is a good practice. Get it over the email. Hey, we are going to deploy on this virtual network. Can you specify the what IP range should we decide on this for this project? So you could be have a multiple project on Azure, right? Everyone
Mhm.
need you are for them you are deploying multiple virtual networks. Some companies what they do that they give a common IP range, a big IP range, and let the network cloud engineer to decide it what IP range they want to keep it. So some companies will give you, they say that hey, cloud engineer or cloud architect, we are giving you this IP range slash 100.0 all slash 24. Let's say that all slash we are giving you this IP range for the cloud. Use wisely. Tilde 110, right? Tilde 110, they will give it to you. They will say that, hey, we have given you this much IP range. You can decide how do you want to do segregation. If you feel that this is my new project that is required only 4 or 10 virtual machine, and that requires different VNet, right? So for them, 10 virtual machine, you're not going to spend 256 IP range slash 24. You will keep it a small range. So what I'll do that, I'll just create a new network, which will be 10.0.101 slash, let's say that I'll just keep it for 27, right? That will be going to provide me approximately 9 virtual machine or 18 virtual machines, sorry. I'm not confirm with the number, but that will going to provide me 18 virtual machines, right? Now this network I'll be starting from further, not 18. This will be going to have actually, if I just calculate it, think on that part. This will give me 13 virtual machine, 13 or 12 virtual machine, I believe, 11 virtual machine. This range I'll be starting from here. That another network range will be starting from 0.101 slash 16, again 27 I'm giving the range. So now this machine will start IP range called 0.101.4. This will be first virtual machine. Here my virtual machine will be 10.0.0101. Here it will be 19. So this is further range I'm continuing from here or different VNets. We'll see that in virtual network. Don't worry right now. Just to heads up, guys, you should have a proper network. You should have a proper network before deploying virtual machine. So it should not conflict with other networks which you're going to connect in future. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Starting with the network is most important thing. You have to decide it whether you have. Secondly, that when you deploy virtual machine, you should deploy proper network, whether it's a production network, whether it is a development network or UAT network. Most of the time, what happened that in organization, every project or every environment will have a different networks. You cannot make a UAT and the production in the same network. Why? Because most of the time in the development a UAT, you keep it things open. You don't tie the things. In the production, you tie the things. You don't allow to have interact with any unusable things or unnecessary things, right? So you cannot have a same network. So you have to choose a right network. First thing. Second thing is why network is important. Once virtual machine get deployed in one network, you cannot move from that network to another network. You have to redeploy your virtual machine. Make sense? Why this network is important? You can consider the, hey, okay, Samit, what I'll do that. Okay, as of now, let me deploy here. In future, I'll just move this machine to here. No, you cannot do that. Once you deploy a virtual machine in some network, you cannot move from that virtual machine to another network. You have to delete it and redeploy a new virtual machine from the scratch. Make sense? Why network is important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Now, next point is that you need to consider naming convention. What is a naming convention or right name for the virtual machine? Anyone knows that? What is naming convention?
The
We have
server
to
name.
Yes.
name the server or the virtual machine. We have to name the
Exactly.
virtual machine.
So why this is important, guys? I heard only two voices, either Arif or Haider. No, not from other peoples. Guys, please contribute. It's for you. It's okay you don't know. That's why you have joined a session. Why we are discussing to understand the thing concept or infrastructure concept. You are not. You have to change your mindset, guys. That you are focusing on your job. Being a cloud engineer, you have to focus on each and everything and every minute places,
Uh,
right?
Shamid, one request.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
right now, I'm having a meeting in office. Shall I quit right now?
All right. No issue. You
Yeah,
can.
I'm sitting in office only right now. And call for meeting. Uh, I will quit the class. Okay.
Sure, sure. No, no issue. No issue. I'll send you a
Okay.
recording in
Tomorrow,
the
no,
link.
sir. Continue full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no issue. I'll send you a recording in the group so you can
Okay.
watch the recording.
Okay. Thank you, Shamid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other guys, what do you think? Why naming convention is important? Why naming convention is important?
To avoid conflict between the virtual machine's name.
Okay, we can keep a similar virtual machine name in a different resource group. That won't make conflict. But think that just consider that this virtual machine is not just an individual identity. We are not deploying just for the fun. It will be going to productionalize your virtual machine, right? It will going to it will become a production. So, or whether it's a be in a production, it will be going to still in the UAT or development. You are going to manage from the centralized place, right? So it will be a part of your Active Directory. Right.
So
If it's a
we
yes,
identify resource groups easily.
exactly. This is one of a example, one of a reason we should identify the resource easily. Second is that your virtual machine will be a part of the Active Directory or DNS. You are going to register with your internal DNS, private DNS, right? So it should not make a conflict with the host name. That's why your virtual machine should have a unique name. And for this, Microsoft have put a plenty of good guideline what should be a naming convention. Sure, naming convention example. So this is Microsoft have tried to help you out. You should have a proper naming convention of your resources. They have created entire document page regarding naming and tagging and naming convention and what should be abbreviation and what should be a strategy for those resources. So let's say that it's not only about virtual machine. Along with virtual machine, you have a disk, you have a resource group, you have a NIC card, you have a public IPs, you have virtual network, and each and everything should be easy to understand by seeing just a name. So Microsoft have given you a proper documentation page. It is they have created like this. They have given resource type, workload, then environment, and which region you have deployed and instance. So let's say that this is an example of PIP, which means the public IP, public IP of a SharePoint workload or application, right? Then this SharePoint will be a production SharePoint, which is possible that you can have a SharePoint in multiple locations for your different customers. So you will having a West US region, and in the West US region you are having more loads, so you want to deploy multiple instances for that SharePoint, production SharePoint. So you can have one, two, three for that. This is a Microsoft have suggested a pattern. It is not necessary you have to follow this one. Microsoft have given a suggestion, or Microsoft have a good advice page which will give you that how should be your naming convention, right? And what area you should be there. There's some general examples. Let's say that you're creating a subscription. Subscription doesn't require everything. Region is doesn't require a subscription. And resource group also doesn't require a region because resource group is not a region based bind, right? You can have multiple resources with the different regions, right? So this could be possible. But for some items which is are region based, you have to decide, you have to mention the regions, right? Like networking, virtual network. This is required regions, right? It could be shared network, it could be production, it could be client network. It could be number of one, two, three instance which you are going to create it for you, network. So you should have a proper naming convention, right? Secondly, the importance of naming convention when you have a virtual machine and it's going to join a domain and try to resolve the DNS, it should not conflict with your when you try to resolve with your host name. So let me give an example. If I in my laptop, if I ping sometimes what happened that you try to resolve your host name with so it returns my IP. Can you see that it's returning my IP? Although this is IPv6 I'm using right now, but it returns my IP, right? Same way, if there's a two machine which having the laptop slash home name, machine will my laptop will get confused which IP I should return, either this machine or some different machine, right? You should have a unique name for each and every resource in Azure. Easy to identify, easy to manage it. Secondly, it is not going to conflict in the DNS record. This is I just give you this page in your chat box so you can refer it. What should be a naming convention, right? And there is some little bit abbreviation Microsoft have tried to map it for you. Let's say that you want to have a DNS, so you can put it DNS ZZ. If you have a private DNS zone, you can put ZNet Z, right? If you have a private link, you can keep it PL. If you have virtual machine, where's virtual machine? There's a virtual network, you can just put it VNet, right? If you are doing peering, so you can put peer. This Microsoft have tried to make it as soon as possible your abbreviation. So every company create their naming convention. Without naming convention, no companies works, right? Even they are not in the cloud. If they are in on-premises, they still have their naming conventions. Let me show you a couple of naming conventions which I have plotted for my previous organization. This is a demo. This is not actually in use. We have just a draft for that. Where is that? Not this one. All right. All right. This is a naming convention I have drafted. Right. I have keep it here. Right. This is a limitations. What is the limitation of my document, and what is the limitation of a naming convention? Let's say example that storage in the storage we can go we should require at least 3 characters and can go maximum 24 character, and all should be alphanumeric form, and all lowercase. Uppercases doesn't support. Right. It's the case sensitive. Public IPs, every resources which you are commonly going to deploy in Azure, you will have a limitations that you have to write it down and a format for the pattern. Then you will start with your pattern. You have a naming convention, your subscription, resource group, networking, everything you will have a pattern. This is a pattern which we are following for deploying resources. All resources in future, we are going to follow this pattern, right? So this is a pattern you can find out. So I can simply see by seeing name, I can simply say that, okay, this is belongs to which resource group, what is the project name. So let's say that this is Europe Northeast, right? The Europe Northeast, this is UMB project, right? This is belongs to my shared project, productionalize, and it is availability set 01, right? Let's say the disk. So this is my North Europe disk, which is a shared subscription. This is for CentOS, right? This is for a repo server, and this is 1000 is my productions related, and this is one is my count, and this is the data disk. I still remember this one, right? It is easy to remember. Make sense, guys? So every organization have their own documentation for naming convention, whether they are in cloud or not. And when you are trying to create first time for cloud documentation, you have to try to match it from on-premises. Try to match it on premises. I know Microsoft have given recommendations. If you're pure cloud-based, you can directly follow Microsoft recommendation. But if you are on premises, you have to try to follow the pattern with on premises. All right. Now, question to you guys. Decide the location. Why location is important? Why location is important?
We have like a cluster environment, or we have like disaster recovery setup. So in case of that,
For
it is easy to
availability set.
identify, right?
Okay. Uh, Disaster cluster will come later. We are trying to deploy one first virtual machine, right? And for
Right.
trying to deploy the like might be development or might be a UAT. In that
Maybe
scenario, yes, go ahead, go
just
ahead.
for the cost,
Okay, cost is one of our cost is one of a reason. This is one of a reason. Any other reason which comes in your mind?
availability sets.
Not availability set. You can simply say that the availability in that region, service availability in that region,
Okay.
right? Anything else which is important? Two things is important which you are missing out, guys. Heather, you can also try it out here, guys. I have not asked you to don't attempt. Heather, are you here?
Actually, I missed the question. What is the
Alright.
question?
So the question is that why is important to choose a proper location?
because of the cost, because with the
Cost.
location we can cost, yes, that is the one of the main reason.
Mhm. Cost, actually, believe me, guys, company who like a Deloitte or who are the CAT or any any insurance company, any financial company, any pharmaceutical company, they don't bother about cost. Believe me, they focus on the cost, but they don't bother of cost if it's a here and there plus and minus. Yes, cost is important, first thing. What else is most important?
Fast access.
Fast access. What is the right word for that is latency. You will try to deploy your virtual machine or your resources next to your customer, next to end users, right? So let's say that if I'm deploying my resources in India and my customers, end users in US, so definitely I'll be having latency. That is not acceptable. I'll try to make sure that I should have less latency. This is the first initial criteria to choosing locations, right? Secondly, the compliance, the company compliance, country compliance, legal challenges, you have to look for it, right? Just a minute. Yeah, here. So you first thing is that which I think someone have already that availability, the hardware availability. Not every region will have a same hardware available. Different region will have a different hardware, and if you want to go for a specific hardware, you will choose that region. But it's a very rare case. It's a very rare case. Most of the times, all the hardwares are available in all regions, right? Secondly is that you will try to make your virtual machine as close as possible to your end user, so you can have a less latency, right? Third, which is the important one, is that your compliance and legal obligations. Let's say that I'm deploying a project for some finance industry, and as per my RBI guideline, I cannot deploy my resources outside India, right? If I deploy my US, if I deploy SBI bank data in US data center, this will be not acceptable. This will be completely out of the compliance or legal boundaries. So you will make sure that your all data, all resources should be bound with your compliance and legal obligations. And other factors definitely compute costs are changed based on the countries and based on the data center due to the import charges and countries taxations, right? So that is an important factor. Another in the planning phase, we are still in a planning phase, guys, because I believe that more than how to do it, why to do it is important, right? S- another thing is that choosing the right size of virtual machine. In Azure, we have a two tiers. One is a basic tier, another is standard tier. In a basic tier, I don't know why Microsoft kept the basic tier. It is a useless tier. It's have only four virtual machine, A0 to A4, and that doesn't support auto scaling, that doesn't support load balancer, that doesn't go beyond 300 IOPS. It is just for the batch process computing and for testing any other product. And the same cost you can get in the standard tier virtual machine. So always my recommendation is always go with the standard tier, even it's a demo project. Go with the standard project, right? In a standard tier, you will find out A series, F series, D series, G series, E series, various series are available in Azure standard tier, and every series will have a different cores and different sizing of virtual machines. So, right. So, and how to choose this series based on your requirement. Why it's not coming? Right. Based on your requirement. If you want to go for low pricing, you can go for the A series. If you want to go for the compute intensive, but you want to pay low, you can go for the F series. If you want to go for high compute, large memory, you can go for the M series. If you want to go for general purpose computing, which do the normal stuff, you can go for the D series, right? So based on your requirement, you are choosing virtual machine. Why to pay extra if you don't require it, right? Let's say that I have application called Scala or might be Hadoop. Those are in-memory applications. What is in-memory applications? That's consume lot of memory. They goes and sit in the memory whether they are compiling or they are running the application or not, right? Whether they are doing a job or not, they are go and sit in the memory. That is called in-memory application. That's required lot of memories, right? But they require less compute power compared to the memory. So why to pay for the compute also? Go for the right size and go for the right size virtual machine, which is providing less compute but high memory. All right, this series, which you right now looking at screen, A series, D series, F series, those series supports HDD disk, HDD. Do you know, guys, what is difference between HDD and SSD? Is it everyone knows?
Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Simply, in general, HDD is slower, SSD is a faster disk, right? This series only support HDD. But if you wanted to have SDD standard SDD disk, right? You have to go with S series. So every series which you are looking right now, F, D, M, F, H, G, all will ends with S. DS, FS, GS, LS, right? ES. Those series which end with S support SDD. SDD plus if you required you can attach HDD also. SSD, sorry, not wrong. SSD, SSD, right? In Azure we call it SSD as a premium disk, premium storage or premium disk. Make sense, guys? The same series which is having D, you can find out DS here, which you found here as a DV2, it's a DSV2. And guys, the cost of this DS and D is same. There is no difference at all. The cost of DV2 and cost of DSV2 are same. There's no difference at all. Only difference is that it support SSD, it doesn't support SSD. So what people will prefer to deploy? Definitely S series people will go prefer to deploy because whether you use SSD or not, you want to go for SSD, HDD, simply HDD, it will going to support on DS series. If you want to have in future SSD, so you can go for you can simply have it in SSD S series, and there is no pricing difference. So when you're deploying in production or in your environment, go for the S series because without S and with S, it's the same cost. All right.
Okay.
Each each virtual machine are has been categorized as per their requirement. So if you want to go for general purpose computing, you can go for the B series, D series, or A series, DC series. If you want to have compute optimized, you can go for the F series. If you wanted to have a memory optimized, so you can go for G series, M series. So what's the difference between those series? Is it just a table? If customer asks, hey, I can see this virtual machine and this virtual machine have a 2 core 8 GB RAM. This virtual machine have 2 core 8 GB RAM. What's the difference between these two? Both are the same. So you can look for Microsoft documentation, right? And in the Microsoft documentation, they have given complete details. So table which I have borrowed from here itself, right? This is a table which I have borrowed. If you get go for just for compute, general purpose compute, and you can click on D series, right? Let's say that D series. This D series is supported by this hardware. That could be possible that customer wanted to have some specific hardware. So this D series is supported this hardware, whether it's DV2 or DSV2, both are the same, right? And even and in this series, D series, V2 or DS series, there's a plenty of options or sizing available. So if you go for D1 V2, it is giving you one core 3.5 GB RAM. If you go for D2 V2, it will give you two core 7 GB RAM. If you go for similar in the DS, if you go for D DS4 V2, it will give you 8 core 28 GB RAM. And along with the different resources, we'll talk later on that part. But this is how you decide the sizing. Make sense, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So you can refer this table or you can refer this page. This is important one. Okay. You can refer this page for different sizing. Why to choose, not this one, sorry, the previous one. Here you can refer the page which can help you out to choose the right size of virtual machine, why to choose what size and what could be limitation here. There's a maximum limitation. Let me give example that this virtual machine you deployed and you required 8 NIC card, some XYZ reason, right? But this series is only support to maximum 2 NIC cards, right? Or might be the another good example is that this virtual machine you have taken up this size and you required 8 data disk, but this machine supports only maximum 4 data disk. So you have to go for different size, or you can look for another series. So can I change from E series to D series because this is a different category? Yes, I can do that. I can do anything within a same tier. So I can jump A to D, D to Z, or any series which is comes in a standard tier. But I cannot go from basic tier to standard or standard to basic. That's why I'm suggesting that guys just leave it this basic tier. Don't use it at all. That's a useless tier. Or I'm not aware why this is got deployed. All right. Any questions so far, guys?
We have to use the only pre-built configuration, or we can make our own configuration also.
No, we cannot make our own configuration. It's a predefined configuration. That's why it's called SKU. If you guys aware that what is SKU in generally terms used in the market or in the industry, that means that store keeping unit. SKU, store keeping unit. Store keeping unit is always have standardized, which is they have already decided you have to follow that. You cannot make it, okay, I want to have a 8 core and 128 GB RAM. I cannot make it, or I can make it 8 core RAM and 8 core hard disk, 8 core CPU or 8 GB RAM. I cannot make it this one. I cannot customize it. It's a standardized size. You have to use it.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else have a question? No questions? Should I go ahead?
Yes.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Perfect. Perfect. Now here is little bit uh, things need to understand. If you trying to deploy a virtual machine, you can have three types of disk. Three types of disk in terms of attachment, right? You will have it operating system disk. You will have a data disk, which is very commonly known by the people. So when we are deploying virtual machine, this is virtual machine I have already deployed, right? In the virtual machine, if I just click on a disk area, I have clicked on virtual machine. In the left side, this is called blades, right? This is called blades. In the blade area, left blade, I just click on this. I can see one operating system disk has been deployed for my this virtual machine. This contains only operating system related data, Windows files and program files, right? This size is 128 GB, right? There's another option is I can create or attach, which is called a data disk. There's two types of disk you can see here, data disk and OS disk, right? Data disk is optional if you require additional disk space apart from operating system. So let's say that you have 128 GB operating system disk and you don't want to store anything in your OS disk. You want to do store if your output data is much higher, extracted data is much higher, you want to store in additional disk, D drive, E drive, F drive, then you will going to attach a data disk, right? The operating system disks are the SATA drive, labeled as a C for the Windows and slash for the Linux machine, right? And data disk is a CASI drive, depends on your virtual machine type, what you decided. It could be SSD, it could be HDD. Same way for the operating system disk, it could be SSD, it could be HDD. So for me, right now, which I have deployed here, you can see that it is premium SSD disk. I have decided to go for the premium SSD rather than choosing HDD. Right? You can decide it. Can I change it later on? Yes, I can change it later on. I can make a premium SSD to HDD or I can make HDD to SSD. Can I upsize it? Yes, I can do the upsize it. Can I do the downsizing? No, I cannot do the downsizing. Once I increase the size, I cannot do the downsizing. All right, guys. Any
Okay.
questions? So let me repeat. Can I change from premium to standard or standard to premium? Yes, I can do that. Right? There is one exception. I will talk with detail when we're talking about the desk in details. Right? Can I change sizing of virtual machine? Yes, I can go upscale. I can do upscaling, but I cannot do the downscaling. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's understand. I have mentioned that there's a three type of disk. One is operating system disk, another is data disk, another is a temporary disk. We'll discuss in details what is a temporary disk. Did you guys understood that what is operating system disk and what is a data disk? All right, one important thing I forgot to mention that the operating system disk decide who decide the operating system disk? Who decide the operating system size? Are we deciding? No, we don't decide it. It will
Azure.
be, yeah, it will be decided by the image. The image which you are referring, it will be decided by image. Let's say that you are going to deploy Linux virtual machine. So Linux virtual machine is sufficient to have a 30 GB size. So in the image, when someone is preparing image for Azure or for yourself, whether it's custom image or for the Azure, someone is preparing image, they have decided, let me go for Linux Ubuntu 30 GB sufficient, right? So that they have decided that time and they have carried to image. So now when you're deploying virtual machine, you will have you will have operating system disk size from the image, it will be a 30 GB, right? Can you make it big while deployment? Yes, you can make it big while deployment. Can you reduce it while deployment? No, you cannot reduce it. You have to go minimum size, which is mentioned in the image. You can upscale it while deployment. Okay?
Okay.
Guys, are you there? Everyone?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Next is data disk. You can attach number of data disks, but there's a limitation based on your virtual machine size. So if you have taken a DSV2 size virtual machine that's supposed to core, so maximum that's supposed to maximum data disk, so that you can go for maximum two data disks. If it supports number of count eight data disks, you can go number of eight data disks, right? The sizing of data disk can be vary. The first disk could be 128 GB, second disk could be 256 GB, third disk could be 512 GB, doesn't matter. It will be very as per your requirement, right? There is another disk you will find out not in the portal, not in the portal. When you click on a disk area, you won't find out a temporary disk in the not in the portal. But when you log into virtual machine, so if you guys can see that right now, it's only OS disk attached, which is a 128 GB. But if I just take a RDP, okay, virtual machine is not started. Let me start. Right. When you take a RDP, you will find out inside there is one more D drive that is called a temporary drive. Right. So where is this temporary drive coming from? Where is this temporary drive coming from? Anyone knows that, or anyone can guess that? Where is this temporary drive coming from? And why
It is a
Microsoft?
part. Yes, it is a part of operating disk only, I think.
No, this is not a part of operating system. It is not a.
Okay.
It is not a part of operating system. This. Yes, Pooja, please go ahead.
Based on size of the VM.
Yes,
Yes,
based
yes.
on the size of VM, yes, it's a partial answer is right. Based on the partial size of virtual machine, you will get the size of temporary size of disk, right? So let's say that if I go for the lower size, I'll get only 32 GB. If I go for higher size, I'll get 64 GB, right? Based on the virtual machine size, the disk size get varies. Right? Let me start. I can show you that one. Then I'll. So let me connect RDP. All right, I'm trying to log in my virtual machine. You can see the name, which I try to make it a naming convention as per the Microsoft standard, but this is a wrong naming convention. Reason I'll tell you. All right. The reason which I'm telling you that why this is a wrong naming convention, let me go here and show you host name. It is partially have taken, not a completely taken. Reason because Microsoft supports maximum 15 character as a host name. So you should do the right naming convention. You should not go beyond the 15 character of your Windows machine. For Linux, it's okay. Linux takes approximately 128 characters. Hey guys, sorry, there was a network disturbance. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying that the character naming character uh, for the Windows should be maximum 15 character for host name. So any virtual machine you're deploying for Windows should not be more than 15 character. This is a wrong naming convention. You have to plan it properly. All right. Regarding temporary disk, we are talking about regarding temporary disk. So let me go here and show you that this computer, and you can see that this is a 128 GB disk. It looks like 126 here inside, but it's a 128 GB disk, which is nothing but my disk, this disk, 128 GB, 127 GB, right? It is operating system, but you can see here there is additional disk, which is approximately 16 GB, which is a temporary disk. A label is temporary disk, and if you go inside disk, there is a warning file and say that any data you stored on this drive is subject to be lost and there is no way to get recovered. So any data you keep it here, that will be subject to lost. When it will get lost? When you reboot your virtual machine. If I keep it any data here as of now, it will perfectly fine until unless my virtual machine is running. But if I shut down my virtual machine and start it back, it not necessarily I'll get the data, or most of the time it's to get deleted the data. The reason, what is a temporary disk, we have to understand this, right? I know guys, I'm just taking a little bit more time, but let me cover this topic. So how the virtualization works in Azure Data Center, right? So this is my physical box. This is my physical box, right? And there could be a cluster of physical box, not only one, right? In the data center, there's a cluster of. If I keep my virtual machine, if Azure deploy my virtual machine here and use CPU of this machine, right? Definitely is going to use the CPU of this machine, RAM of this machine. And if use this disk, right? And this box goes down. This box goes down. It's really difficult to recover via my virtual machine, right? From even I'm raise a ticket with Microsoft. Hey, Microsoft, I have lost my virtual machine. It's not able to connect. And Microsoft says that hey, your virtual machine which is connected to that box, that box crash. So we are trying to recover it, but it is really difficult to recover the my operating system because this entire box is crashed and this along with that disk is crashed. So what Microsoft do that, Microsoft don't use this disk which is comes with the box, physical box. Microsoft use a SAN storage, which is a common practice in on-premises also, on-premises data center. We use a sandbox, right? A sandbox, storage area network. In the storage area network, we keep our operating system or data disk. And we only use compute power and RAM from for this virtual machine. And all the operating system disks and data disks are stored in some sandbox, right? In case this box goes down, not an issue. We simply, we simply, what you can do that, move your virtual machine to other place, right? Start using compute power, start using compute power and RAM and connect to this disk. OS disk and data disk. Your virtual machine is ready. So simpler. Right guys? Is it clear now? This point is clear?
Yes.
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 Right,
Yes.
right. So it's
But is the
easy.
data of this VM is continuously in sync with the sandbox
Yes.
or
No, no, it's not in the copy. It's always stored here. It's always
okay?
stored. Even you write a virtual machine A here or B here, it's not storing on physical box. It's always stored on sandbox. This is how it's designed in
Mhm.
any data center, whether it's Microsoft, it's or it is a NetMagic data center or CFI data center. This is how technology works nowadays. Even if you use a
Okay.
VMware have a in the next to that VM box, they have a sandboxes. EMC boxes, they generally have it. This is now people use in a technology in data centers. It's a normal in the data center, right? So let's say that this virtual machine also giving a problem. So what I'll just Microsoft will say that, hey, I'm just taking a reboot and moving your machine to another box. So they move in the box. So this is start connecting with these machines, right? Now, if you lively you're writing any data, this data is not storing this physical box. This always stored in sandbox, right? Make sense, guys? Is it so far clear? So now question is that this box, this physical box also have a disk which is underutilized. Only what you have here is that you have OS of this physical box, OS of physical box, right? Rest of the times, this hard disk is underutilized. There is no use. There's no use. It's underutilized and it is connected to your physical box. So which is more faster compared to these options. It is more faster compared to this option, but it's underutilized. So what Microsoft start doing that, Microsoft start giving it free. A chunk of a disk is start giving a free to you as a temporary disk, right? So why Microsoft says that it's a temporary? Because if you move from here to here, Microsoft not going to copy data for you, which is stored on this box. Because this box, why Microsoft have avoid to have this box because keeping storage and data in this box to have it that not to copy from here in case this get crash, this box get crash. Make sense now? Why this is a temporary disk and we
Yeah.
don't see
Yeah.
why we don't see outside the inside the portal inside, we just see inside the virtual machine because if Microsoft is not selling it, so it's actually Microsoft selling it. Believe me, guys, Microsoft is selling it. So it's a faster sizing. Why people use it? This then what could be use case if it's not a permanent memory? People use for paging. People use for caching, right? People use for the caching. People use for paging. People use for the swap memory, right? People is used for the lot of which is a batch processing, right? Which is used for the extracting and uploading. Since it's a faster disk compared to the other disk, which is attached data disk and operating system disk, it is a physically attached to your box. It's a faster disk people use for the caching, for faster access, extraction, and uploading, but it's have a limitation of a size. Right now, I can see in my virtual machine, where's my virtual machine? It's only 32, it's only 16 GB. If I want to have it 34, I have to go for higher size of compute, which means that right now I'm using, right now I'm using which size? I'm using 2 core. If I wanted to have 32 GB of that temporary disk for my applications, so I have to go for 4 core. So I'm end up paying more to Microsoft if to utilize the temporary disk, right? So believe me, in production, it doesn't matter. Sizing, costing, it doesn't matter. Yes, too much spending is a problem, but if it's a genuine spending, people are okay to use it. Make sense, guys? What is the difference between temporary disk and permanent disk, or what's the difference between temporary disk, OS disk, and where is my data disk?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This diagram will make you more clarity. And yeah, so this is your physical node that store your data as some Azure storage. We are not talking about right now Azure storage, but it's OS disk and data disk get stored, and temporary disk is coming from your physical box. All right, we'll stop here today. We'll discuss on disk. We'll continue on disk, where we how we store the disk on the storage, what type of disk, what is SSD, what is a HDD, what is standard SSD. We'll talk tomorrow on this topics. Any questions so far, guys? We can take a 4 minute leverage, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we'll end of our session today. No questions?
Can we decide the size of temporary disk?
We cannot decide, but we can choose. Let me give you example. So I'll go here and virtual machine sizing, which I said, where is sizing? Yeah, here is sizing. So I'll go for in general purpose, and I'll go for D series. I have decided to go for the DSV2. Can you see that temporary disk sizing here? It's if you go for
Yeah.
this, it's providing you 50 GB. If you want to have 100 GB, you can go for this machine. But if you feel that, okay, this is not important for me, but I want to have a high compute. So you can, rather than going DV2, you can go for the, which is a cheaper cost, is called DV4, DDV4. It is 2 core, but it's providing you 75 GB, right? Or let me go for, so this will be a virtual machine sizing will be a deciding factor for you to having a temporary storage. Make sense, guys?
Yeah.
So everything will be revolve around your virtual machine size. If you go for standard D4, V3, D8, V3, you will have 8 core, 32 GB RAM, 200 temporary disk. Maximum disk, number of disks you can attach, data disk 16 here. The maximum output of entire virtual machine for IOPS in terms of is 12,000, right? The maximum number of NIC cards and the bandwidth will be depends on here. It's all depends on size. If you want to have a higher in terms of anything here, you have to go for next sizing. You cannot customize that. Okay, I want to have a 32 GB disk, but I want to have a 8 core. It won't be possible.
Okay, if I want to change the from D8 to D4 or D8 to D16, is there any downtime on the production or how it works?
Yes, it will be a downtime. It will be a downtime. It will be at least 5 minutes downtime changing a size. So, so let me give a live demo. So this is my virtual machine. Right now I'm running on 2 core. The BMS2 2, I am just changing a size. I'll go in the size blade, right? I'll choose rather than B series, which is right now it's costing me. Why I cannot see the cost here? 1 minute. So this is costing me $60 per month. I wanted to have a higher size rather than this. I'll just go for it. This is costing me $200 per month, right? And it have a difference. B2MS and B24 it can support 18 GB RAM. It have a different sizing. It have a maximum 4 data disk. Can support up to 16 data disk, right? And temporary disk will be having here right now. I can see the 16 here. I can have a 22. This is my virtual machine running right now. If I just resize it, send a request for resize, and you can see that in a few seconds this virtual machine will shut down and restart, right? This will be a restart, will be a downtime.
Okay.
Yeah, but can't we use horizontal scaling over here?
This is a vertical scaling. Horizontal scaling, for horizontal scaling we can use virtual machine scale set. Virtual machine scale set is a different concept. There's a two, actually this is our next topic, upcoming topic in slides. So we have two types of scalings, right? So right now you're at 2 core, you wanted to achieve 8 core, right? Here is all 8 core. So when you have virtual machine size called 2 core, right? And you wanted to have 8 core, so you have to take a downtime and you have to restart your virtual machine. That is called vertical scaling from you changing 2 core to 8 core. But when you say that horizontal scaling, right, you are creating similar instance of a 2 core number of times. So this is a 2 core. You keep running this 2 core without disturbing it. You creating another 2 core. You creating another 2 core. You creating another 2 core. 2 core, 2 core, 2 core, 2 core. It's become total in terms of 8 core. This is called a horizontal scaling. And to achieve a single application to should be running, you are binding to all this together and running behind load balancer, right? This is concept is called a horizontal scaling, and which you are increasing a size is called vertical scaling. Make sense, guys?
Yes.
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 All right. So this is I'm going to explain you in detail when we are uh, talking about virtual machine scale set concept, how we can make it auto scaling, how we can make it a static scaling, but it should be horizontal without disturbing my running workloads. What what should be application? What should how to store the data? If our data is getting stored in the virtual machine, and if and the second request comes here, so it won't get the data. So where should I store my data? So all the stuff we're going to discuss in virtual machine skill set. All right, guys, I think too much information for today, one day. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. And guys, one request to you, all of you, please be interactive. I love to interact with you guys. I want to know that what's going on in your mind. It's not just a YouTube session or Udemy session. I'm just talking here. I just want to interact with you to explain you in details. All right, guys, see you tomorrow. Have a nice day. And any doubt, please post in the